Okay. All right. Peter, everyone is always talking about...
All the Saints.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's always talking about the character of Robocop, but very few people ever ask you about the character of Murphy before he became Robocop. And a lot of our viewers, I think, would be interested in knowing if you ever had a history or a backstory about him.
Well, yeah, there is. You know, there's a whole press kit I did on Murphy, as Murphy. I don't know if you ever saw that.
What were your feelings on him as a character?
I don't know. It's so long ago. I think he died. I can't remember.
Okay.
He was a good guy. He was a cop. He came from part of Detroit, you know, that didn't have a lot of action. Then he was thrown into old Detroit purposely, you know. He was set up by OCP to go into a place that had a lot of action, you know, because they're hoping that he would be killed, and sure shit he was.
Interesting.
So he was not a tough cop at all, you know. He was a good cop, though, but he had seen a lot of violence, and subsequently that's why OCP chose me to be this guinea pig for Robocop.
Interesting. And one of the things that I found very, very striking about the first film, and in this one, watching you throughout the entire production, is how you can suggest that there is still some kind of person within that, that outfit, that robot. And I think part of that came from your mime training with Moni. Could you talk about that? Yeah, a little bit.
Well, yeah. I mean, I really thank Moni a lot for initially we had something else in mind. We had something more exotic and more balletic and athletic and so forth. But that wasn't quite copacetic with the suit. And so Moni changed the ideas of it on the spot, you know, as we were seeing that Moni's and our ideas didn't jive with the suit. That is to say that, you know, that when the things we worked on were not the things that were conducive to what Rob Bottin had designed. But once we got in the suit, you know, Rob Bottin and Moni and me and Paul Verhoeven, you know, came up with 100 ideas, and Moni was the guy who came up with the idea to slow the movement down and play into the size of the suit. And then we began to watch, Moni turned me on to Eisenstein, Ivan the Terrible, where Nikolai Cherkasov, you can see these huge movements, you know, he turns and, you know, back at the camera and do these things, you know, that are very robotic, like Robo. And so I sort of got the idea of the grandeur and the bigness of Robo from Eisenstein.
Interesting. And you seem to have sort of like built on that for Robo too, because I'm seeing a lot more movement this time, you know, a lot more invention.
Well, you know, in all deference to Paul Verhoeven, who was gifted, Irv Kirchner, I don't know, he's not, I want to say he's expanded on it, but he has expanded on the movement ideas, and he's sort of demanded or asked for a lot more of a scope, you know, movement than initially was envisioned by Paul.
And this is one of those, you know, common questions, but what's it been like, you know, working with two such diametrically different directors, because they both have different ways of directing, I would think.
You know, oddly, they don't have different ways of directing. They have two different kind of personalities, but you know, they're both wacky, pretty wacky. And I'm not so, you know, sane myself, but I had you know, Paul is a very entertaining kind of guy, you know, because he's so out there, and Kirsch is more of a fun-loving kind of guy. And I know that sounds redundant, but Paul is more like a, you know, kind of a strange bird, you know, flying around. And you kind of marvel at. Whereas Kirsch is like more like kind of like an Afghan dog, you know, just, you know, doing 100 things at once.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're both fun, but they essentially direct the same way. You know, they're very intense. Both of these guys are very intense.
Interesting. Okay, and overall, what would you say has been the biggest difference between this film and the first film, for you personally?
It was easier.
It was easier this time out?
It was more, things were facilitated much easier. That's only because number one is number one. We've never done it before, you know, this is number two. So we had something to jump off from, so it came.
Okay. Thank you very much, Peter.